Welcome to HiggTalks podcast. I have good friend Lauren Duke with PerfectMed with me today.
Hello.
How's
Glad
it
to
going?
be here.
Yeah.
Thanks
for coming
having me.
on.
Yeah.
So we'll just start off with some background about you, kind of how you got to this point. What is PerfectMed? How you work, what you do, and all that good stuff.
Yeah. Okay. My background is in medical management. I've been in the medical field for 22 years now, going through aesthetics, medicine, hospital and private practice and specialty, as well as surgery centers. So kind of been all over the place in the medical field, doing some sort of administration or management. And I recently it's been a little over a year now, stepped out on my own and created PerfectMed Consulting to help practices just get to the next level, get past whatever their primary challenges are, evaluate finances, help them to grow specific products or services, or training their team on great customer service at Ritz-Carlton, all that good stuff. So it's been a little over a year, and I love it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So let's get a little bit more about PerfectMed and a little bit more detail about how you help clients and what exactly you do.
Yeah. So, as a new business, brand new entrepreneur, I fell into the trap of feeling like I needed to provide everything. I need to be able to pivot and provide a solution for every little thing. So I started out doing financial benchmarking, operations, team, even recruiting and hiring, training and development, billing services, just anything that they needed. I could do it, and I was doing it, and quickly exhausted. So I've been, over the last 6 to 9 months, starting to specialize a little bit and just narrow that scope a little bit more. So I love working with great teams in specialty medicine who have a great team in place, and they just want to kind of grow to the next level, or maybe they're looking at bringing on another provider, another physician, or maybe a nurse injector. And how do they do that? What does that look like? Or they're looking at new technology and they want to add a different service, but there's a lot of capital investment there when you're looking at acquiring new equipment and the training involved with that. So I can step in and help facilitate any of those problems, and just kind of guide them safely to the next point, because I've been through that, been there, and I know what that looks like. And it's just good to kind of hold their hand through the process. It helps them feel good.
Yeah. So you've obviously been in this field for a while in different capacities.
Yep.
What are some of the challenges that either you have faced or maybe that you see these companies face in running their business and growing their business?
Yeah, well, the medical field is constantly changing. Regulations and requirements from the state, from the medical board, are changing all the time. Technology is changing, and so that just continues to kind of squeeze and put pressure on the providers. So you have to be flexible. So it's good for me, because the need for that flexibility means more of a demand for my services. But that's really where I'm focusing, is knowing that those changes are coming, knowing that for example, the Texas Medical Board will likely make changes to physician delegation in the next year or two. How can we prepare for that as a practice and plan so that our providers have additional services that they can get into if all of a sudden, like Texas is one of the only states that an esthetician can do injections like Botox and fillers and things like that, because the medical board says a physician can delegate whatever services to whatever provider they feel like is qualified and can perform that treatment. But when that changes, then it'll only be like nurses and above who can do those injections. Excuse me. So we got to prepare for estheticians maybe moving into a new subset of specialties, maybe body contouring or facials or lasers, kind of pivoting like that. So just being prepared and knowing like, okay, there's changes that can happen. We need to be able to pivot if needed.
Gotcha. Backing up just a little bit, what kind of spurred you to start off on your own and finally make that leap to being an entrepreneur?
Yeah. Well, I love challenges, and I love working with great teams. And there's certain aspects of what I'm doing that just really click for me. So managing a plastic surgery practice and med spa for 12 years, I was able to grow the practice to a significant point. And so we had access to a lot of consultants and a lot of reps, great resources, and things that some of the smaller practices just simply don't have access to. And I'm a data nerd. I love to look at the numbers, and so knowing where we were and how we got there, and having the data to kind of analyze and prove that made sense, it just all clicks with me. And so several of those reps and consultants were like, okay, this, just so you know, like most practices don't actually have this kind of grasp on it. What you've done with this practice and what makes sense for you is not necessarily the norm. So it would be great if we had more people like you who were just in the field that could help all these other practices that are really struggling. They don't even know where they could go, much less how to get there. So it really just started getting me thinking about like, okay, well, what would it look like if I could, branch out, do my own thing, and provide just resource and counsel, like as a guide to these other practices, and then kind of just hand them off, like more like a specific project management instead of being in the practice itself. And, they encouraged me, and they were right. It's great. I love it.
Awesome. Sweet. What are some tools that you can't live without have been vital to you starting this business?
So I have a couple certifications from the Ritz-Carlton Leadership Program training.
Oh, wow.
So the Ritz-Carlton is definitely something that I use the most often. Just constantly elevating that customer service or patient experience aspect of it is huge. The medical field is known for just, you don't have any control over that experience. You have to go to this provider. You have to be seen because it's a need. And so you just kind of have to deal with whatever service you get. And a lot of times you can tell that the staff isn't really thrilled to be there. So the service and experience suffers. So I'm always pushing Ritz-Carlton always to do better and deliver that white glove experience. Yeah. The Disney experience is another one that I love and run through trainings with practices. But I like to start with a good personality profiling. There's lots of them out there. There's StrengthsFinder, there's Myers-Briggs, Enneagram even. My favorite is Discovery Insights. And that I like for all of the staff to do so they can learn more about themselves, of course, but then also they can use it to better work with their team members. And then there's an aspect of it where you can learn buying types from your patients also. So in the aesthetic field, this is all discretionary income. These are elective procedures. So learning what buying type a patient is can help you kind of create the right presentation for them, the right consultation experience, so you can give them the information that they need and not waste their time on stuff that they're just not even going to remember in the consultation process anyway. So
yeah, that's crucial.
I love those. Those are my main tools, and I use them all the time. They're great.
Nice. So it sounds like you had a little bit of a learning curve when you first started out.
Yes.
Kind of doing too much, getting in over your head, being everything to everyone.
Yes.
And you've kind of nailed it down a little bit more now.
Yes.
What for a new client, what does like the full process look like when they choose to work with PerfectMed?
Well, I start with the exploratory, call. I prefer a meeting in person so that I can really experience the culture of the potential client. I want to find out where they've been, what their goals are, what their challenges are and their pain points, and then kind of develop along with them an action plan and then implement that. So it's all, bespoke, custom for that practice. But to me, the important thing is knowing that leadership is ready and willing to support and equip and really get behind whatever it is we're doing, so that can be rolled out, and then they're just a consistent supporter of the new solutions or the processes that we're putting in place.
Gotcha. Yeah, we were talking about that before we started, how some clients say they're ready to make changes, and then once the changes are presented, they balk or they drag their feet or they just won't do it, and that can be really frustrating. When they've presented the issues, they've discussed pain that they have, and you present them a solution to pain, and they're unwilling to make that step. Can you talk about that a little bit more, and what that looks like? Why do you think that happens, and how people can avoid that happening to them?
Yeah, it is wild to me how much money people will spend to just not take your advice. I mean, the best client for me is a practice that knows that there are issues and they want to change, and they're actually willing to change to prevent them from continuing. So it's wild. I've worked with several practices through the years that just, they can tell you what the problems are, and they want to work with you, and we'll sit down together and we'll create this full action plan together. And they're bought in and like, yes, this is great. Yes, this solves this problem. Or we've been trying to figure out how to sidestep that and just haven't been able to figure it out. So that's great. And then as soon as you start working through them, you get the actually, I can we do it the way we've always done it? And it's wild because it's like, okay, you already know what the result is from doing this. So if you, by choosing to continue that, you're saying, I'm going to keep struggling with this problem. And, change is hard. Change is really hard. And I think people really get personally invested in their business so much that the processes that they're going through are really kind of like sweet and sacred to them. And so it's hard to accept that that's not the best move or that doesn't work, and to be able to pivot to something else. So I think being at the point where you can be flexible and just kind of step back and recognize these are my skills and I'm going to just own them, and I'm going to let others who are really strong in these other areas shine in that, and together we'll be successful. Where I don't feel like I need to own all the things just because I'm either the CEO or the medical director or whatever it is. Being flexible in that, and just I think maybe a dose of humility helps prevent any kind of just bad investment in just throwing money at consultants or workshops and things. If you're not ready to do it, then don't do it.
Yeah. We'll talk a little bit about coaching. Do you feel that coaching is helpful with someone that's maybe being a little bit stubborn or having that issue, letting go of some things? Is coaching something you use to work on people like that?
Yes, coaching is great. A lot of times you get so lost in the forest that you can't see the trees. Coaching, in my experience, kind of brings it back to the basics, going back to the personality profiling and remembering, okay, these are the ways that you tend to communicate, and these are the ways you tend to react, and just going through those basics and helping them to kind of like reset, take a deep breath, metaphorically, and then just moving forward and resetting just kind of helps to sharpen the focus again. So
Can we maybe talk about what coaching is too? The first place for someone who's not aware of exactly what that looks like and what that entails.
Yeah, and I've done individual coaching as well as team coaching. Team coaching is a little bit tricky because you just have to be able to facilitate all the voices and personalities in the room. But individually, just getting to the person and their goals and their mindset. And I think there's a huge amount of respect built into coaching so that they can feel the importance of their role within the company. It takes all roles, but in the aesthetic medical field in particular, a lot of the weight gets put behind like your cosmetic surgery coordinator or medical surgery coordinator, because they're the ones actually booking and selling the procedures. So they typically will see, more of a financial incentive as well, and maybe even more flexibility because they're in a way kind of controlling the revenue flow. But bottom line is the first impression can kill that opportunity. So, your call centers, your receptionists, your front of house management, even your nursing team, they're all so important to the entire experience for the patient. So I get back to that a lot in coaching, just to make sure that everybody understands, like, there is no weak player here. There is no weak link. Everybody has to be strong and work together in order to make a successful practice. So it's just reinforcing a lot of those things in coaching, and then getting back to the team.
Yeah. Do you see a lot of other people that are doing the same type of work as you do doing coaching like that? I know I learned coaching in my previous job in roofing, and you'd said, "Hey, that's pretty rare." And I was like, "Yeah, it is pretty rare."
Yeah.
Do you see that industry wide very much?
I see it in the medical field, but really only at like the executive level. I see it for more of the providers, from a business owner standpoint, and just equipping them in that way, because a lot of times they may not be, your physicians or surgeons might not be as confident on the business side. But yeah, I mentioned that about it being rare in roofing. I mean, how often do you hear about coaching in the roofing industry? But I think it's one of those things that everybody would love and benefit from, but it's just not really like normalized yet. It's not something that people talk about a lot. I think there's maybe some implied weakness in that comes up. I love that mental health and just regular like therapy has become more just okay to talk about. It's important for everybody to take their mental health seriously. And so that plays into the same thing to me. Coaching as a business professional and coaching for your team is just good to do all the time. It's not something that you would want to do in a reactive way when there's already something on fire.
Yeah.
But that's more the norm, really. So I'm hoping that it'll continue to grow and just be more common and be okay.
Yeah. Do you have any other philosophies on when you coach businesses on hiring, what to look for in employees, and how to train their current employees and build a healthier workspace? Obviously, coaching is a part of that. What other philosophies would you have on that?
Yeah, the culture that you have at that company, at that practice, is critical. So I encourage providers to hire on character and train on skill. So you can't change someone's character, but you, aside from like a certification or some sort of like professional degree, then you can teach them what you need them to do. But to find someone who is passionate about the industry and cares for other people, like really genuinely in their hearts wants to deliver a good patient experience and cares about other people, and then that translates to them being a good team player, and as well as delivering good service for a patient. That's something that you can't change and create in a person. So I encourage them to focus on that first, and then specific skills and experience, not so much relevance and emphasis on that. It's just you can teach that as you go. And often I think that's better, because then they don't come in with bad habits and things that you have to change, or even maybe baggage from another practice where they maybe didn't do things the same way and they had a bad culture there. So hire that character.
Yep. 100%. You touched on this briefly earlier, but let's nail down a little further kind of what the ideal client for PerfectMed looks like.
Yeah.
And what you look for in a client.
Ideally, somebody that has a good team in place and they just want to get to the next level. They're either looking to grow their practice in general, or maybe they want to expand or have multiple locations. Maybe they're wanting to bring in a specific service or product, And that may be a different niche and a different type of marketing that's required to get to the ideal candidates and who would patients that would really be interested in looking for those services. So how do you do that? How do you get to those people? Being hungry for that is key for me, because I don't want to work with a client that I'm having to like drag along with me, like I'm to prod along the way. I want you to already be excited about and know what you want and where you want your practice to go. And then I can just kind of help guide along the way, but I'm not like dragging. I'm not that strong in the upper body, so that wouldn't work very well.
I know you're just a little over a year into doing it on your own, but you've been doing this sort of work for a long time.
Yeah.
If you had to start from scratch, what would you do differently?
I think that I would slow down out the gate a little bit at first. Like we talked about earlier, that I just really wanted to take in as much business as I could at the first, because, new solo entrepreneur, and I don't know, I didn't know what I didn't know.
Yep.
And I wanted to be able to learn as much as I could. So I was like a sponge, taking in all this stuff and then pivoting. And I need to study a little bit more on this particular type of insurance billing so that I can do that for this client. And it was a lot, and it was exhausting. Very fun and very educational, but tiring. So if I had it to do all over again, I would take a breath and slow down and focus on specializing right out the gate instead of just feeling the need to adapt to what everyone's needs are.
Yeah.
Because that's ultimately impossible. So.
All right, that brings us to the next question that we always ask on these HiggTalks podcasts is advice to young entrepreneurs, kind of dovetails in with that last one.
Yeah.
And then the importance of mentorship.
Yeah. So those kind of go together for me, because I would say that a mentor is critical for a new entrepreneur. Really, everyone should have a mentor. But when you're going out on your own, especially for the first time, having a mentor that knows you, knows your strengths and weaknesses, knows how to challenge you and maybe help you. There's some accountability there for establishing some healthy boundaries for yourself.
Yeah.
That is critical. I mean, there are people that have been doing what we've been doing for a lot longer than we have. So there's a lot to learn, and there's no room for ego. Room for ego. So I think the faster that you can learn to latch on to a mentor, 2 mentors, 4 mentors, whatever, get into some good groups that you can communicate with, and teams, and really be able to set yourself up in the industry for maybe some like specialty organizations. The more you can learn from them, the better. So I've got a few mentors that I love and work with, and they challenge me on a regular basis, and they know when I'm like straying from what my original goal was. And they're like, hey, that's cool, but is that what you really want to be doing? And I'm like, oh yeah, okay, thanks. So they just kind of keep you, they're like bumpers when you're bowling. They just keep you in the lane. So
yeah, because we all know the stories of the person full of ego. They go really far, and then they usually have a really big fall too.
Yeah.
And so I like what you said. There's no room for ego.
That's right.
And that's just so true. And a mentor is it's a vital tool to kind of, like you said, corralling you, keeping you in your lane, holding you accountable, and keeping you humble.
Yeah.
What are your plans for PerfectMed for the next 2 years?
Man, I have so much planned for PerfectMed. I want to
deep breath. Remember, deep breath.
Right? Yeah. I'm doing some surgery center accreditation, which is a little bit new for me, which is great. But I really want to get to like the top 1% of facilitator and workshopper. Wow. Like Scrum Master, workshopper extraordinaire. So that's a lofty goal. I don't know if it'll be within 2 years, but that's something that I'm working towards. At the end of the day, though, I want to see some growth, and I want to want to have to replicate myself in order to meet the demand for the specialty that I've carved out for myself. I want to have to bring in someone else that's like-minded that, can help me take over the world. But I want to still be hungry.
Yeah.
I feel like it's easy to get burned out as an entrepreneur, and especially a solo entrepreneur. So I want to still be hungry and excited and passionate about what I'm doing in 2 years.
Yeah. What do you find helps you keep that hunger and in general motivation? And how would you coach someone towards finding motivation in their work?
Well, a lot of it's just natural passion. These play to my strengths, and so I love what I'm doing. But I think just learning, constantly learning, listening to podcasts, looking for articles and blogs to read. The industry is constantly changing, so that learning process keeps me hungry because there's new things, and it keeps it exciting.
Awesome. Cool. Well, where can people find you? How can they interact with you if you want them to?
Yeah, PerfectMedConsulting.com, of course. LinkedIn, PerfectMed Consulting, Instagram as well. So yeah, just getting started, throwing some stuff out there, and I'd love to connect with everyone.
Awesome. Go hit up Lauren, say hi, and thanks for being on here today. It was great talking to you.
Thanks, Tyser.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.